afternoon, friends. My name is Lisa, and we're going to be spending some time together this afternoon making this really cool dinosaur craft. So it's going to look something like this, but with your own creativity when we are done. It's this really cool 3D pop out of a dinosaur that can stand up wherever you'd like to put it when you are finished with it. So for the sample, I chose to do a Brontosaurus, which is the gentle giant of our dinosaurs, and I really wish I was alive to see this thing in action, but the truth is I would probably be a scaredy cat and run and hide. For the demo, I picked something a little bit more ferocious, a T-Rex, instead of our gentle giant, just for a little bit of variety. So there's a lot of different patterns to choose from. So before we get started, let's do a check and make sure you have all of your supplies that you need. You're going to need your dinosaur, and I'm going to leave it attached into the cardboard cutout just because it makes it a little bit easier to paint. Now if you pop that dinosaur out already, don't panic. It's not going to run away and you will be just fine. Next, I've got this really cool piece of paper, our table covering that I have down so I don't make a mess on the table, because sometimes the paint is really hard to clean up. I also have some different colored sponges, and each of the sponges have this really cool different pattern on the ends of them. So no matter what you have to paint with, whether it's a brush or a sponge, we can still do some really cool things on your dinosaur. I also have a foam plate, and on the inside I've got some really cool different colors of paint to make this dinosaur come to life. And it's okay if your colors might be a little bit different than mine. I've got 5 colors. I've got orange, red, green, purple, and yellow. And then I've got a really cool paper towel, just in case I make a mess. It's really great for wiping my hands. So remember, as we get started, a little bit of paint goes a long way. So we want to stay away from really kind of grabbing that paint and grabbing a big glob of paint. Also for fun, my son and I just kind of finished doing this fossil dig, so I put some of the pieces on the table because it matched the craft we were doing so well. So I put some teeth that we had found in our dig on the table, and they are quite sharp, which I was very surprised. We found some fossilized shells, a few pieces of bone, and some amber, which is really pretty on the inside. All right, so go ahead and pause the video if you still need time to set up. And when you're ready, just go ahead and push that play button and we will get started together. So the first thing that I want to do with my T-Rex, and I'm going to call T-Rex, I'm going to give him a name. He has to have a name. I'm going to call him Buddy, so that way I can call him my buddy. He's super cool. Is I'm going to put down a very light color in paint all over the bottom of my T-Rex, so that way I can add colors to him in different patterns. So I'm going to pick a brush or a sponge that is very large in size. So these two are bigger on the tips of the sponges instead of these tiny little baby ones, because I will be here all day long and I might turn into a dinosaur. So I'm going to pick a sponge brush with a pattern that's large. So I'm just going to kind of stick with this big green one. Then I want to pick a light colored paint. So when I look, the purple and the red and the green are a pretty dark color. So I'm going to pick yellow. And I'm going to put a little bit of paint right at the bottom of the brush. And what I'm going to do with the brush is I'm going to start tapping on the dinosaur. It's almost like I'm tapping my T-Rex and I'm saying, good boy, please don't bite me. Good little dinosaur. And I'm tapping all that paint right into the cardboard. So remember, as you're going, a little bit of paint on the sponge. Then I'm going to tap, 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 all the way into the cardboard of my T-Rex. So the whole idea is I'm going to cover the T-Rex in one solid color. So whether I'm picking the orange or the yellow, something that's very light. So this is called a base coat. So we're kind of applying this base coat to our T-Rex. And then after I apply this base coat, then I can start mixing really cool colors on it. And I'm going to choose a bright color. Oh, my Brontosaurus just passed out. You might be kind of scared, you guys. Don't be scared. I think I'm just going to lay him down and put the tree over here. You're starting to rock and roll and shake the table. So I'm going to add this base coat, give him a nice bright color, so when I start mixing colors, he's really going to start to come to life. So as I'm painting, I'm going to kind of hold this up to the camera and turn it. If I have any lumps of paint or any paint that's raised, I'm going to make sure to tap all that paint down. I do not want any globs of paint. We want to make sure that our dinosaur dries. The T-Rex has always fascinated me with just those little tiny arms that he's had. Just a fascinating creature. I also very much like the Stegosaurus. It is the dinosaur that has those big sharp spikes on the back and has all of the horns on the head. Alright, so once I've got this base coat down, don't panic if I work faster than you do, because you can always pause the video. But now I want to start showing you some really cool things that you can do with your dinosaur. Since I have yellow on this sponge, I'm just going to set it aside and save that for my yellow paint. I'm going to try not to mix my colors too much on the sponge, else I'll end up with this kind of muddy brown color. I'm going to switch sponges, and now I'm going to start to add in some colors on my T-Rex. So with my Brontosaurus, I added some red to the legs right over the yellow to give it a little bit of color. So I'm going to start to tap in some of the red, and it starts to mix right on the cardboard with some of that yellow. And as the paint starts to dry out, it gets this really cool kind of effect where the skin starts to look like scales. So if I end up with too much paint, then it gets a really pretty solid red color. But if I use a little bit of paint, then the paint starts to fade away and it starts to look like scales on the dinosaur. Let me hold that up a little bit closer, see if we can take a look at that. So just a little bit of paint on your sponge will really do some cool effects. So I'm going to put a little bit of red in his feet and in his arms. And this is where you get to have fun and really be creative with your colors. So you can start to mix different colors into your dinosaur. You can start with the belly of your dinosaur and with your hands and your feet. Maybe you want to come and decorate his tail. So let me show you how I did these really cool spots along the top of the dinosaur. I went to a smaller brush, like the small green round one, or maybe this tiny pink one, but I picked a much smaller brush. And I picked a very dark color, like purple or green. I grabbed a tiny bit of paint and I tapped little tiny dots across the back. So I would press and lift, press and lift, press and lift, press and lift. So the really great thing about having this on video is if you miss something or I go a little bit too fast, guess what? Just go back a couple seconds and you can watch it again. So I'm just going to tap and lift across the back of my T-Rex. And I can give him spots on his back. This is really great if you have one of the dinosaurs that have spikes along the back and you want to add some dark color along the spikes. I'm going to take a brand new sponge and I'm going to grab a little bit of the green and I'm going to add some green on his tail. And if I go back and forth, I can almost give him stripes on his tail. So it's really fun to try different patterns. I don't know if any of you painters today have lizards at home, but they are really cool pets. Or snakes. Snakes are really cool pets too. Right, so just a reminder, a little bit of paint goes a long way. So make sure you're really pushing the paint down into the cardboard because we want to make sure that our painting dries. So for the face of my T-Rex, I'm going to put a little bit of orange under his jaw. This is going to be really colorful. This is one happy T-Rex, you guys. And I'm just going to leave his eye at the top. I'm not going to kind of punch that little piece of the cardboard out. I'm going to leave everything together in the cardboard. And I'm not so worried if I go over the lines because once we punch the dinosaur out, you're not going to see any of that area where we went over the lines here. Alright, so just let your imaginations go wild. Don't forget that off in the corner, you're going to have some type of plant that's going to be the stand for your dinosaur. So we want to make sure that we paint that also. I'm going to put down yellow and then come over it with green. Give me a nice bright color for my bushes. I wish I could be there to see how amazing your dinosaurs are turning out. I'm sure they are sensational. All right, wonderful. So here's my dinosaur. I really like how it looks. I've got some stripes on the tail, some of those dark purple spots, and I kind of went back over them. So I've got that yellow that went down first, so none of the cardboard peeks through. And I put lots of colors all through my dinosaur. So the next step is we're gonna let it kind of sit for a second. And with the paints that we have, they dry very, very quickly. They're just a nice school paint, so they're very nice to use. And very carefully, once they've dried, then you can push them through and you can pop your dinosaur out. Just want to be really, really easy around the mouth and around the fingers. And please ask for help if you need help or if you feel like your dinosaur is going to tear. So I'm gonna set, oh my gosh, it looks so cool. I'm gonna set my T-Rex to the side. Stay away from the Brontosaurus, mister. And then I'm gonna come over here to my plant. And I'm gonna pop my plant out. Perfect. I'm gonna take the garbage. This is garbage. I'm gonna set it aside. And then very carefully, making sure that this area is dry, I'm just going to pop that little circle out so you can see. Maybe I'll just set that right there so it doesn't run away. And then this part of my plant has a section cut out, and then you'll find that in your dinosaur there'll be a section cut out of his foot that your plant can stand up in. And it kind of goes together like a little puzzle. And your dinosaur can stand up. And then you can set them wherever you'd like to. So what's really neat about this dinosaur, since it's 3D, and this school paint is so nice that it dries pretty quickly to the touch. So if you're careful, you can flip it over, and you can very gently, when it's dried, you can add a second coat to the back side of your dinosaur, just as long as you have it covering on your table. And you can do the same thing with the plant. And then once it's dried, you can pick up your table covering and throw it away. So I'm going to start to work on the back half of my dinosaur. If the back half of your dinosaur isn't dried yet, then you maybe have a coloring page that you can color, or work on something that you set aside in art that you've been trying to finish, or work on a drawing. Maybe you can do a drawing of something that you love to draw. So I'm just going to add a little color to the back of my bush. And again, I'm just using a tiny, tiny bit of paint. And then I can very carefully pick that up and set it aside. And if I get any wet paint on my fingers, I can wipe it off on the towel. And then next, I can work on the back side of my dinosaur. So let me show you a trick that I did. I spent a lot of time designing the front of my Brontosaurus, because this is kind of the part that I want to show off. On the back side of my Brontosaurus, I just did one kind of one mixed color because I want this to be the background. So I have one side that I designed really good, and then on the back side I just did a background color. So I'm going to do the same for my T-Rex. On the front side I designed this amazing T-Rex, and on the back side I'm going to do a very simple design so it kind of blends in. What I want to do is camouflage side. So to camouflage my T-Rex, since he is kind of this ferocious animal, I'm just going to use orange and red and make the background of my T-Rex orange and red. So I'm just going to give him a camouflage side, and I'm going to use just a very little bit of paint, and I'm going to tap that in. So the same idea, a little tiny bit of paint. And I'm tapping all the paint in till it's almost dry. And I'm lifting him up just to make sure he doesn't stick on the other side. I like this round brush, it looks like lizard scales. Just a little tiny bit of paint. Perfect. Make sure I got all the brown on him. Oh, perfect. I love it. Okay, so I'm just going to check him and make sure that I don't have any globs of paint. You have been a good boy. You have not bit me once. Thank you very much. Alright, so here is my T-Rex. On one side, we have his designer side. He's out and about on the town, cruising around, having a good time. And then when he doesn't want to be seen, dun dun dun, he has his camouflage side, his hunting side. Do, 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 do. When I want to stand him up and display him on my desk, then I can take this little stand and put it right here on his foot. And I can stand him up on my desk. And he has a little buddy Brontosaurus that I made earlier. And Brontosaurus and T-Rex can hang out. So they're just having fun being buddies. hanging out together. And there they are. Oh, I sure do like these guys. Well, I had a super great time making T-Rex today to add with my Brontosaurus. I hope you had a really great time making your prehistoric dinosaur, and we'll see you next time for our next craft. Bye, everybody.